Good morning, everyone. This is Jennifer Hillman and Abstract Illusions Radio. We are blessed with having Elisa Novick back on the show. She is a healer, a teacher, a counselor, a coach, a minister, a facilitator of many, many kinds of workshops and training and opening up to the highest potential within your life. And I am very blessed to be talking to her as she is traveling the world on her world tour, doing her wonderful courses to heal the planet. Her website is thrivingplanet.org. You can find out a lot of information about her ongoing workshops, and she does do one-to-one, so you can set up a session with her, even on her world tour, which is awesome. Hello, how are you doing? And thank you so much for being back on air.
I'm doing great, Jennifer. Thanks for having me again.
We've chatted every once in a while, and you've thrown me a lifeline, so I know you're a wonderful person. You get me back center, and I know you're just a beautiful soul. I originally found you through Eric Francis' Planet Waves, and the articles, and you have a very strong connection with all of Mother Earth. You speak with the fairies, the trees, the stars, and many, many levels of the universe. So I gotta ask, how did this really start? That you really started opening up and saying, hey, there's something more going on here.
This lifetime, I presume.
Yes, in this lifetime.
Right. Well, I was brought up as a strict Jewish atheist, so I won't bother explaining all of that. But opening up to spirit was quite a journey. I first, in the early years, I was in all kinds of therapy, primal therapy, psychomotor therapy, and then at a certain point, when I was in my 20s, and I'm 62 now, my therapist said to me, well, I don't have anything more to offer you. And I said, but what's that empty hole I feel inside of me? And she said, maybe it's your spirituality. And I went, my mother would kill me. So that the amazing thing was that the very next day I met one of the first teachers that I had who taught me about energy and God and spiritual things. And things happened actually quite rapidly. It was like everything just, one of those doors just opened up and I was in another place. So I met folks with whom I trained as a healer. I met my spiritual teacher. I started taking all kinds of wonderful trainings and eventually, started my own practice. In the early days, I was doing more body work and then energy work and then more working with people in terms of counseling and working on more mental, emotional, karmic, and spiritual levels, and then facilitating workshops. And then there were just turning points where I would meet a new person with whom I would study, and the last one for the last 23 years, and eventually developed a series of workshops and my other work as a healer, as a counselor, that led me into some amazing places, working with people, working with trees, working at a planetary level, working with a systemic consciousness in the workshops and even in my private sessions, so that I began to develop a very broad continuum, a range of working from personal to familial, because I feel that working with the family is one of the major pieces of work that most of us have to do. And then more working with how we relate to the generations that have come before us and how it all comes together. I think 75% of the stuff we deal with is more generational. And then there's, of course, your previous history as a soul and incarnation, in other existences. And I would say the one of the big things that I came to is the idea that we are in an evolution right now that's moving quite quickly into something that we didn't know about before. We didn't know that there are things that we can do that we didn't know about before. And very much I found that coming together in the groups, that within the group consciousness, when we brought it together in a certain way, that people found out that they had spiritual abilities that they had no idea that they had when they were just by themselves. So that became really exciting to me, to work with group energy and see what it was that we could do when we come into very highly attuned, fine-tuned constellations of consciousness. So I developed a workshop called the Laboratory of Life, based on work that I had learned where we would work spatially in the space of a room or a grove in a forest, creating relationships by where we stood in the space, and found out that there wasn't anything from the microcosmic to the macrocosmic that we couldn't take a look at and actually shift some of the underlying basic patterns or blueprints into a more healing or holistic state. And as we did that, people just started coming alive in whole new ways. And so that to me is the most pleasurable thing, is just seeing people sparkle, see us coming into these, I don't know what to call it, a state of consciousness or a oneness. It's not necessarily a oneness, but it's like a chord of music has a beautiful sound because the notes go together so beautifully, and it gives you pleasure. And that in those states of consciousness, we could actually create new, coherent, exquisite patterns of healing and thriving for the planet and beyond. So we could work at the personal level in terms of, healing those issues that may have plagued us over years, in terms of getting stronger, getting clearer, clearing out negative patterns, influences, etc., programming. And then finding out that inside of us, when we start to come from the soul, the essence of who we are, and from the intuition, the knowing, the loving, the God connection or spiritual connection, that when we come into those places, first of all, it's wonderful for each of us, developing that kind of mastery. But coming into relationship, we find that there's something way beyond what we've called relationship in the past. And as I said, I believe we're developing into something new. You find that people have abilities they just didn't know they had. So I guess there's just a continuum, and I love to work with the entire ball of wax. I love the whole continuum, from the deeply personal work, which I do in private sessions and in workshops, to looking at the macrocosm and knowing that we can shift the macrocosm.
Okay, can I ask you a few questions of things that you've mentioned that I'm a little intrigued by? Mm-hmm. Okay, you said more people are doing work on the generational, meaning, and I just wanted to get a little bit more of a clarification on what you mean by that.
Well, I've been doing the spatial work and looking at genetic lines for many, many years, and then I discovered the work of Bert Hellinger with family constellation, began to include that as well. And I go very much by my inner guidance. I developed a system of getting very precise inner guidance many years ago, which I've been teaching for many years also, called Accessing the Inner Master. And what my guidance said is that about 75% and as a generalization, of the stuff that we deal with, it comes from previous generations. So many times people come to me and they'll say, I have these patterns that just are so difficult for me to deal with. And almost all the time I find that, yes, a lot of it may come from your life experience in this lifetime, but there are also things that may have been passed down by previous generations. And when we use the combination of the family work, the systemic work, and having spiritual guidance to go by, and attuning, then sometimes things that may have come down from 4, 5, 6 generations ago, we start to heal those patterns as well. And the wonderful thing about that is I feel that when we do that, when we bring those things into resolution, that it ripples back and forth in time, that it actually frees the ancestors as well as preparing the way for the next generations to start fresh. Because whatever doesn't get handled in the family system gets handed down to the next generation.
Yeah, and there is a lot of healing modalities, like Ho'oponopono says it helps 7 generations back and forward.
Right. And I don't go by 7s, but I go by, that's a nice figure, but, it could be 2, 3 generations, it could be 5, right. It could be 20. But it's a lovely idea.
Right.
And I believe, and it's absolutely true. I think, they've got a wonderful system there in Hawaii of healing, difficulties that take place in families. And I wish everyone had that here where I am right now in Bali, where people still live in family compounds, and you may have, 30 to 50 people in a family compound, and they don't seem to have those ways of resolving family conflicts. So I'm very much in admiration of that system, which I've read about.
Yes. It's I've done the family constellation work that you mentioned. It is a blast to do for yourself and for others. It is fun.
Right.
So I highly recommend people check that out. It was not what I expected when I first went to it. But I will do it again anytime. It's fun.
Right. It's very powerful work. And if you include the spiritual awareness, you can go a lot further with it, because most people who are doing that work with the information that they have about the family and don't go further than that. But if you bring in the spiritual attunement, then you can and get really comfortable with working the spaces. Often you go way, way further back, which is really exciting to me.
Yes.
Plus, if necessary, we can bring in the previous lifetimes that have also contributed to that. And I like very much to work with, what happened in the family. Was it just the family? Was it emigration trauma, which happens, most families in the United States who aren't Native American, they're going to have that as well in the history. It's actually been interesting being here in Bali, because there are people here who never have left their homeland or left the family. So it's a very different dynamic that we have here. But bringing in the churches, the governments, the famines, the persecutions, the societal systems, the planetary systems even, as well, gives you a much larger constellation to work with, and can bring tremendous results with people, just tremendous.
Well, I like the fact that you take from the macro into the micro and beyond, because it really does expand really in all directions of time and space. And that's truly what we're trying to do, is kind of purify our souls from the lessons that we've learned and what we've experienced, to be that true master within us and be able to listen and move forward. And your work is just so empowering towards that. Someday I will do your workshops in person with you. That's on my, that would be a bucket list. That is on the bucket list. Top 5 things for me to do. Right. Maybe I'll meet you in Japan, or maybe I'll go to Australia. We'll have to figure that out sooner than later.
To you.
Hey, that's an idea.
The way this whole Thriving Planet World Tour came about was just because I was working with people in various places, and then we started talking about me coming to them.
Oh, but see, I'd rather go over there. This is a nice place, but I love to travel.
Right.
Let me have a full experience out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I had one woman who came to my workshop in France. She's actually American, but she lives in France, and then ended up flying up to Brussels to take my workshop. And then it just happened that she was coming to the Omega Institute when I was there as the Hermitage resident. So I worked with her there, and she took one of my Tree Love Heart of the Forest workshops, because my trees that we haven't mentioned my trees yet, at least in this interview, my trees are right around the corner from the Omega Institute in New York State. So that was such a blast getting to work with her in France, Belgium, and in the United States, and to even I actually created the Tree Love workshop just so she could take it, because she was there and she wanted to do it. And, we had done some of that work in France and Brussels, and she was just so excited about it. And that's how it happens.
Yes.
I work with people in various places, and then I end up going to where they live, and they put together or help me put together workshops. And actually here in Bali, I had a client who I've worked with for many, many years, and on personal levels, and then coaching and doing my best to assist her. She started an inner city school in New York and did that for 5 years. And then she ended up here in Bali, and so she's helped me to get oriented here. So this is my first time in Asia. As we took the tour to Europe last in the spring through the summer, and then to the Pacific Northwest to the Fairy and Human Relations Congress. And then I went to California, and then I packed up my home, and now I came to Asia. So we're talking about doing workshops here in Bali. I'm working with people in Malaysia, Australia, and Japan so far, possibly even Hawaii. And that's how it's all been happening. And meanwhile, I get to work with all my private clients by Skype, which is just an incredible technology. Not necessarily just that particular one, but the fact that we can do that nowadays, and that I can work with people all over the world, from all over the world, is so exciting. I was just pondering that a little while ago, that I don't know how long that's been around, but 10 years ago I couldn't have done what I'm doing right now.
So a lot of people say that technology is really making more people isolated, but in so many ways it's bringing us closer.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. The balance of it. So when you were talking, there was something that are there certain people that only are supposed to work on the group consciousness? That's really where they have their kind of like their gifts light up, other than, because you mentioned there was somebody that once they were in the group consciousness and they were doing this workshop, and in there, they really came alive.
I think that's pretty much true for everyone in the group workshops. For instance, the workshop that I've been doing for the tour is threefold. It includes work from the Laboratory of Life, where we learn how to work spatially and set up the relationships, and we learn very deeply about ourselves, within ourselves, and in relationship. And we develop this incredible fine-tuning, and we work with boundaries and moving in and out of each other's spaces, and how we do ourselves internally, how we do ourselves in our inner world and in our outer world. And then when I have that as a possibility, so far, almost all my workshops I've been able to, we also go out to the trees, and we do the work with the trees, partnering with the trees and receiving their love, and learning how to attune with these larger, older master trees. And then we also do what I call the God work, or planetary cosmic work, where we form these new patterns of healing and thriving for the planet. And each workshop is totally and completely different. There are certain basic things that I like to do, but there are skills that we have to develop, and attunement that we need to develop in order to do all of those stages. So the basis of it is the Laboratory of Life work in terms of what I'm doing on the tour. There are other workshops that I give, like Accessing the Inner Master, which is actually online. You can take that course online now, where I teach my system of muscle testing for precise spiritual guidance from the highest possible information from the highest possible source. And that doesn't necessarily include the spatial work. But, yeah, and there have been lots of other courses that I've created as well. But for the tour, that's what I've been doing, and that's very exciting work. Each group is totally different because the people show up and they put different things on display and they ask for different things and they need different things. But somehow all of those elements get covered, doing the deeply personal work and doing the larger systemic work. And sometimes one will lead into the other. Many years ago, I did a meeting in Mexico. I've been doing these meetings since 1997 called the Godwork meetings. And where we work mostly at a planetary level and wherever it is that spirit guides us. And yet one woman was going through something that had to do with incest in the family in the previous generations. And as we did that constellation for her family, at some point, actually it was the next night, we came back to it, it morphed into healing the perpetrator on the planet. It went from healing, I forget, an aunt or a grandmother who had been raped by an uncle to the rape of the planet by the perpetrator and bringing in the higher forces to heal the planet. And the woman who was representing the planet went through, tremendous, a beautiful transformation there. And actually the whole group did. But it was so interesting that the personal just kind of morphed into the larger form, and they were healing on all of those levels. And when we do that, I believe that it ripples out to the planet. We actually become like a seed form or a new paradigm, a new pattern. For instance, when you build a house, you start with a blueprint that draws in the manifestation of the actual physical elements that make the building or whatever it is that you're building. So we're doing that at the energetic level. And the fact is we all know how to do it. Inside of us, we know how to do these things. We know how to transmute energy. We know how to clear negativity. We know how to do those things. And if we don't know it ourselves, we can learn it by being with each other and being with other people who are doing it. It just starts to happen. And there are skills involved, and that's been my life's work, is to be able to teach those skills.
And it's it is very, very much important work. And as they say, all the answers are within. You just need to remember and be willing to accept the beautiful gifts through remembering. And it was interesting when you were talking about the morphing of the woman and with Earth. I had a kind of a dream of how the interconnection and the mirroring of what's going on with the planet and what's going on with people, and how it's very much the mirroring between the planetary as well as the human level, humanity, and what's going on. So it's really, I absolutely love when I get those insights. It's like, wow, now how can we change it? Now that we have that realization, what's the next step to correct it so it doesn't continue and that it changes in a more positive way? Yeah. And that's why I always get so excited meeting people with you, because you really, you got it, you understand it, and you're sharing. And it's just like, I just want everybody to get to know you and to really go to our website, thrivingplanet.org, because there is amazing information. As I said, I got to know a little bit about you because of your connection with trees and an article you wrote on your connection, in that magical connection. Do you feel that it's, I'll just say it this way. Do you think it's necessary for people to really connect to trees? To really get the understanding?
Necessary for people or for the trees or for the planet?
All of the above.
There are going to be some people who are called to that and some who are not. And some people will say, well, a tree is just a tree. We cut it down, we make wood. But of the people who've taken the Tree Love Workshop, which obviously if they've taken the workshop, they have some interest in it. So I can't speak for everyone. I do think that if we don't do something to save the trees, we won't be able to save the planet. Because they're the ones that provide the oxygen and so many more amazing things that they do. They basically were the ones that created life on Earth as we know it. This was a carbon dioxide planet, and they changed the carbon dioxide into oxygen, which provided for us. That's known scientifically. What the trees told me is that they did it very specifically. They knew that we were coming in, and they neutralized not only the carbon dioxide, but created the exact kinds of gases that would provide the best nourishment to have mankind show up, and everything else that's shown up that breathes oxygen. So, and they tooled themselves, is basically what I'm saying. They tooled themselves to create the exact mix of gases that we need and to neutralize the negative gases, and they are willing to do that again. There's something about us partnering with them and saving them that is absolutely essential as far as I'm concerned. So I feel like part of my work is just to let people know that there's a sentience in trees. So obviously I can't go into the whole story of the whole 11 years that I've spent with this one small group of trees, but there are articles that are listed on my website that tell you the story, a little bit of the story. I'm going to write a book about it. I've got hundreds of pages of diary and my talks with the trees that I've been putting together, but I'm so busy doing the work I haven't had a chance to write it. I'm hoping that maybe in this time in Bali I'll be able to do that, even though I don't get to be with this particular group of trees I've been working with. Does seem to be mostly the larger, older ones that have the higher consciousness and are able to and desire to have the relationship with me. And the amazing thing is that since I've been working with my trees, everywhere I go, it seems that my trees can then introduce me or have already introduced me to the trees that I meet in those countries. And then when I go back to see my trees in person, the other trees seem to just show up and greet me as well. So that's really exciting. So the story of that is in the articles on my website, how I came to meet these trees and get to know them and partner with them. And I don't know, should I tell any of that, or do we have time?
Oh, yeah, we've got a half an hour.
This interview, but okay, I'll tell you a little. Okay.
It's so interesting. I love hearing it, so please do.
All right, tell it again. Well, about 11 years ago, maybe a little more at this point, I was invited to a birthday party on someone's land and put into some overflow housing. The woman who hosted my friend's 50th birthday party had 2 pieces of land in New York State. And the first morning after I had gotten there, I got there in the evening. First morning I walked down a path, and I had worked with trees before. So I was checking out the trees, and then at some point I just was just this wave of love came to me, and I was so strong I just started weeping and crying. And it was from this noble oak tree. And as I came up to it, I don't know, I felt so much love. I felt myself being changed, and it was so, nobility is the only word I can use for it, grand and noble energy, but so loving. And so I asked my guidance, is this a teacher for me? Though I already had a spiritual teacher and had been working spiritually for decades. And my guidance said, no, this is a partner you can work anywhere in the galaxy with. And so I told the woman who owned the land, and she said, well, my guides don't usually agree on anything, which I thought was interesting. But we agreed that you're welcome to come here and hang out with your tree. She had a lovely cottage and barn that she had renovated, place for me to give workshops. And so I started going there, and I met not just that tree, but a whole group of trees that it was working with, my oak tree. And each one was just the most profound experience. And I started just asking my guidance a lot of questions about them for years and years and years, and having tremendous experiences of loving and healing, bringing workshops there. I started bringing workshops every spring, summer, and fall. And then finally, at some point, someone said, well, have you talked to the trees directly? And I said, oh, I hadn't thought of that. As it turned out, I found one place in my writings where I had actually done it. But I started just sitting down and talking to the trees and just typing out our discussions. And they taught me so many things. I mean, they were like spiritual treatises. They explained other spiritual teachings that I had learned over the years, and brought me into experiences of upliftment and exquisite joy and travel in the spirit that just took me even further than I had ever been fully aware of. It just expanded the whole experience. And at some point, I came into the forest one day, and they were really excited to show me that they were creating this formation, this energetic formation. It kind of looked like a blimp, but it was like, I called it a spaceship. And they said it was a spaceship of ascension, that it was going to be there for people to utilize. And not that it would necessarily travel, but I don't know. I don't know. All I know is they were building this energetic formation, and that over the years, it's gotten more and more beautiful, and I've been kind of woven into it and gone higher in spirit there than I've ever gone anywhere else. And it's become what would I say? Like even here, when I'm in Asia, when I was in Europe, I could tune in. I've been in my forest so many times. I know every aspect, every tree so deeply, so lovingly, that it's actually my spiritual home. So I can go there in the spirit anytime and I'm there. I'm already there. And the people who've come to take the workshops there have had tremendous experiences of, saying things like, my mother's loving me, this tree is loving me the way my mother could never love me, and traveling in the spirit with the trees, and having lives actually change. Like the person who walked in, their whole life changed when they walked out. Mm-hmm. So, and always for the better. There's so much love. I've had so many healings there. Just, I'd walk in and I'd be disturbed about something or other, and by the time I walked out, I was not only healed but had answers. So all I can say is that it's once you've tuned into this, there are friends everywhere.
Yes.
So my first thing was like, well, I don't know if I want to tune this deeply into the planet. I've never been interested in more shamanic type of work, or I had never been interested in that before. And I was like, I'm going home to God. I'm attuning to the Christ and God and the highest realms, and I don't want to get stuck here on this planet. That was my attitude in the beginning. That I didn't want to become attached here, because I was going home to God. And then I found out that there was just a full continuum, and the trees were also going home to God, and there really was no separation necessary or called for, because we're all in that continuum. They're in that continuum. Yes. And the difference between these trees that I'm working with and us is that they don't have any veils between these levels and realms. They had talked about how we come in, and by the age of 7, we've forgotten who we are spiritually. But the trees don't forget. And they just don't have those veils. They don't have those separations. They can travel easily in space and time, in consciousness. And what they really care about is having opportunities for growth. So a few times they've talked to me about, what's going on here ecologically, and that they are actually looking for other places in the galaxy or in the cosmos for them to land, because they didn't feel like they had the spiritual growth opportunities here. It wasn't just that we've cut down 90% of them and that we're destroying the planet, but that what matters to them is that they get to grow. And as a result of the connection that I have with them and that other people have been bringing to them in my workshops and people who are also attuning to trees in other places all over the planet, they have made a new decision to stave off the destruction of the planet, to work together to stave off the destruction of the planet, and to try to make this a viable home for us to continue, that this planet continue to be a viable home for us as well. So it when I first started getting that information, that they were actually intervening for us, and banding together, coming together to assist us. I mean, I just wept. I was bowled over, like, aren't you mad at us? Aren't you angry? That we've, like, why would you want to help us? Like, we're destroying the planet. And they said, we knew from the beginning you might do that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So,
we do have a question in the chat room. She's wondering if you're talking about mycelium or fungi.
I'm talking about trees.
Okay.
I'm talking about trees. I mean, I do believe that, we're all part of the same kind of, bacterial fruiting body of the planet. And the trees are deeply connected with the mycelial world. But the beings I'm working with are the larger, older trees that have a higher consciousness and seem to want to be in that kind of contact. Trees are, from what I'm seeing, are like people. The younger trees are more involved in just propagation and such, and then the older ones are, working more at the wisdom levels, which is for us to save the old growth forest, particularly the boreal forest. Now they're talking about taking down much of the boreal forest to get to the oil and the tar sands, and I think that would just be a recipe for planetary suicide.
And then there's
this happens to be my thing is with the trees, but one day I was in a forest and what stood out the most was a boulder, and I talked to the boulders, and I have this, I think it's in one of those articles, is the discussion that I had with this boulder. And another time I asked Mike Tree about, what do you think of me working with Eric Francis to create a workshop combining the Laboratory of Life and astrology and systemic work, doing constellational work with actual constellations. And I said, don't talk to me, talk to a star. And I had the most amazing conversation with a star. And since then, I've met other people who are in contact with stars. And, and then when I was in Mexico, I felt this incredible bloom of love out of the sea from the dolphins, and had some conversation there as well. The wonderful thing about it, which I'm bringing as part of my message, and I think a lot of people are as well, is that this is a sentient planet, and there's great sentience to be tapped into, and I think different people are going to tap into different areas. In my early years as a healer, I worked with crystals, and I had some pretty tremendous experiences with crystals, and then I kind of left that behind, and not totally. I actually have a couple of them here with me. But I think it's where you're drawn, what you're connected to in terms of what your soul's proclivities are, or the nature of your soul, because some people are connected with the Davic realms, and others are more, ET-like. So go ahead.
No, I'm just saying there are a lot of people that are being guided more to the shamanic, or learning from Earth itself. And I think that's one way of us realizing how much we are a part of Earth, and the partnership we've got here. And it's like, wake up, you're dropping the ball here. So once you connect to, it's like one of my first teachers was an old Palo Verde tree that I learned so much for. And I sat for hours with this tree and just listened. And healed. I mean, she would just literally, I called her Mother Earth. I called her Mother Nature, and I would just sit back and she says, all right, Jen, it's time to release. And I would just start bawling my eyes out. She goes, you're holding in too much. You gotta let it out. So I learned to really connect with, the trees and find different levels of, she says, see every branch with it as you look up within me. You need to touch every branch to really, truly understand the expansiveness of who you are and the universe. And she must have been a good 30, 40-year-old tree. I mean, she had all these branches, and I'm going, wow. And it just really, it opened my eyes to the connection that we all are part of, and the beauty, and really the connections within ourselves. And they often say the universe is within you, so how you treat you and how you treat everybody around you is how you're treating the universe. So it's made me feel and taken the responsibility of being really more open to what other people are about and learning from them, not just shutting them down like I know it all and you don't. I'm open to the experience. And I do feel that the shamanic way of connecting with Earth and understanding the partnership is really critical right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can't speak to shamanism because I don't know that much about it, actually. I can only say that what I do is not ceremony or ritualistic at all. I'm a Bronx bagel baby. And basically, I just talk, and I get talked back to.
Okay, so, let me have a classification.
Who are more involved in that sort of thing than I am, and I have great respect for them.
I'm just saying, shamanic meaning the shamanic nature is just understanding that the planet has things to teach us, and not to be always looking in a book. That nature has a lot of wisdoms to share.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's, so with the planet being, I mean, if they're really, well, I know they are, they're here to help us to ascend and to protect and heal planet Earth, to get a clue of what we've done to this planet and to the animals and to trees. Is there any words of wisdom that they really think we ought to know that's most critical, other than being more aware of what's going on?
Well, I do have on my website, I'll read you a little bit from one of them, some excerpts. It's actually a 6-page handout that I give out in my Tree Love Heart of the Forest workshop, with excerpts of some of the things that they've said to me over the years. And I've read some of them on the previous, I believe, previous interview. So I was thinking maybe I would read you something from a newer one, if you'd like to hear some.
Sure.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's see. I haven't chosen this in advance, so give me a moment here. Okay, there's one of the trees that I call the triple trunk tree, because it's got 3 trunks. Each one does different things. Marvelously, I had tuned into what each one does, and then brought a workshop there, and and others found the same trunks doing the same things. It was so exciting. So anyway, here's what this one said. It's, and this was after I went to Europe. This last spring, I gave 6 workshops in 4 countries. And so there were trees that we met in those workshops. And then when I went back, as I said, to visit my trees in New York State, all the ones that I had met and connected to in Europe showed up to greet me as well. So this is what this one said in my forest. We've pulled in the trees, the ones you've sent and referred to us and attuned with from Europe. And they are all wonderful examples of something that happened but didn't affect them, a razing to the ground of all the wildlife, the wars that came and went. Somehow they survived and lived to tell the tale, sometimes ad infinitum. Sometimes, by the way, the trees use some of my wordage, so You may hear them saying things that I might say, but definitely in ways that I could never say them. And part of what that refers to is that what I found in Europe was that the land was so managed, everything was so managed wall to wall, that it was very, very different from the wildness of the trees that I was familiar with. We can be of service by telling them there are new stories, an updating feast of new millennia love stories as well. And I asked, which are these? And the tree said, that you came, my dear, and told us that you cared for us. And now we build a spaceship, in quotes, a place of recognizance, recognizing that all are in this together and that the world has a history that includes all kinds of atrocities and also love meetings, trysts and sacred groves, religions based upon us and our roots, our branches and our leaves. Your presence reminded us that in the long run this planet will have served its function and all will be relieved of these earthly boundaries. Until then, we will stay and will be nourishing ourselves and replenishing the oxygen as long as we can. Nobody has to suffer any more if and when they get that we care for them. It is an all-encompassing blanketing of love energy, filling in the gaps left behind by plundered trees and lost trees and diseased trees, knowing there is life abundant on these spiritual levels that can resupply those who've been left out by your marauders. Go in peace, my child. This is how you've looked upon us and waited for our exoneration of your species. And this wonderful explanation that all is existing in a web of, and I couldn't quite get the word, it was something like hypostasis, or I couldn't get what that was. That all is taking form anyway, that we transcend these levels and receive of the light's rays in our leaves and our hands. And that was kind of these things you remind us. Your wandering has taken a new course into these highest realms, and they are light beyond measure and beauteous in nature, not without a newness, being in continuous creation. And I think I'll stop there.
But that's beautiful, a newness of creation. They often make me realize as I connect to nature in my outings, I do my best to at least touch a tree everywhere I go just to say thank you. Because they have such wisdom, especially a lot of them have outlived me, so it's like they know more than I do, and they come in even knowing more than I do, and that's it. So it's like, respect your elders is something I take very seriously. So with everything that is going on, what do you have, like an outcome you're trying to get with your world tour? Is it just spread the words, the information, and do your part to help save this planet?
Well, it is that and more. I believe that we can change this creation, that we can create a new creation, and that might be some combination of something radically different or a new evolution, or it might be a recalling of something that is pristine and present, almost like a healthy alternate universe. One of the things that showed up at our very first God Work meeting in 1997 was some more understanding about the sound of the planet. And we are made of sound. We are made of vibration, frequency, resonance. And the idea that came through our group at that time was that the sound of the planet, very much like a whale's head is filled with oil, was made from the whole planet, including the veins of oil and gas and minerals and water and human and other consciousness, dolphin, whales, tree, etc. Whoever is carrying that, and that the sound was now an unhealthy sound, And I got that in those days, and I've also gotten it more recently from the trees, that because the sound has gotten less and less healthy because of what we've done to the planet, it has invited more of the predators and the scavengers. And that if we can renew the sound of the planet, whether renew or make new, a new one, that is a healthy sound, then we invite assistance from all the cosmic forces and beings. And from what I'm getting from the trees, that's starting to happen. We're starting to make that healthier sound. Of course, once you bring in a healing, as in a physical body, there can be cleanses and releases as well. But when you're working in the light, which is the basis of my work, is to bring more light and love into the planet, and not just me, but many people are doing that. Then, we're not talking about vast cataclysms necessarily, but some people are feeling it that way. I think I've lost my train of thought here. But the idea of bringing in a new sound, I love the idea of going around the planet, and it's like tapping a bell from all the different directions, only
right.
Around. That actually, the more people who get involved with this, who are working on their own personal mastery, on healing their relationships, bringing resolution to the family karma, the karmic history, and connecting with spirit, connecting with the sound of life, connecting with the life force in a greater way, that we can come together and create these new patterns, and to do it from different places and different cultures and different groups. To me that's very exciting, and it all resonates into each other. So just as my trees are starting to meet each other from all over the planet, so are our people. And as we do these things, everyone has the blueprint of healing within us. And in larger groups, or even small groups, even tiny groups, when we tune in together, these patterns get created. I get some of the patterns we've created in the groups will still be functional for 500 or 1,000 years because of their coherency. So it's like the coherency has more power. When you have something that's coherent and filled with love and intention, even if you don't do it perfectly, those things are handled by the higher forces. The angels, the masters of light who are working with us, they correct anything that we don't do perfectly. We don't have to be perfect to do this work. We don't have to be perfect to co-create with God. We just have to bring our loving intention into it, and our intention to work for the highest good of all concerned. And once we do that becomes the trigger. That becomes the intercessory prayer that calls forth the higher manifestation. And I truly believe that that's a possibility. At least I'm willing to put my life into it, and I am putting my life on the line for it by doing what I'm doing right now.
Right.
I mean, what else is more interesting, more rich, more profound, more fulfilling?
I can't think of anything.
I can't either.
That's why I like having you on the show.
I'm doing.
We're kindred spirits.
I'm sorry.
I said we're kindred spirits, so.
Well, when I was younger, I looked for that kind of oneness that I was looking for in romance and in depth of a more personal or romantic relationship. But what I realized over the years is that when a group comes into oneness, or even when I'm working, like I have a spiritual partner, a young man who was my apprentice, and now we work on many levels together, that the pleasure is just enormous when you really start to work from the soul level. Mm-hmm. And it has a neutrality and a freedom in it that you won't necessarily find in a romantic attachment, which I like as well at the stage of my life. But the oneness I was looking for is still the oneness that I love. And now I've experienced it. I've experienced it working with myself, with my clients, with my groups, with my spiritual partners that I work with. and my young apprentice. And you know, a lot of this stuff gets run by the fact that it's just deeply pleasurable to come into that alignment in spirit with another being. I mean, when Jesus said, you know, when two or more are gathered, there am I, that is, you know, that is the Christ, that is the oneness, that is the life force. And it just, you know, it has that feeling of rightness.
That's because it is, you know, it's
because it is, and we're built for that. You know, it's just like, you know, I was young. I remember thinking, you know, we were made to take pleasure in the world, and the world was made to give us pleasure. I don't know why. I just had this insight one day. I was lying in the grass and you know, smelling the most wonderful smells. And I know not all the smells of the planet are wonderful, but I just got that we're made for that. And when you're doing what you're made for, there's just nothing more pleasurable. There's nothing more delicious. There's nothing more satisfying. There's nothing more peaceful. You know, but it's not just a peaceful like nothing's going on. It's like a peaceful like that's just illuminated and brilliant and joyful and you know, I don't know. I'm not so good with words. I'm so much better with doing the actual experience than doing the words. But let me read to you from my maple tree. She says, "So be well, my friends. Come forth in your glory, and you will find us waiting in glory to welcome you and live in harmony and grace. Yes, we know grace. We form it every day. We exude this natural grace. Solemnity is not part of it, but laughter, playfulness, ease, and lightness of being. We are creative and naturally curious, and we love the Christ consciousness coming through every pore of this planet's existence. It is what the planet is made of after all. You must broaden your idea of what it is. Your ideas are so narrow and limited. Widen and Christ in every cell of every plant, in every stone, and every being that exists, animal, dolphin, whale, etc." So, I mean, you don't have to use the words I'm using or that they're using. Whatever words work for you are fine. But I know that we can do that as we release these, you know, petty things and the programmings and the things that cause us so much suffering, which is a continuous, lifelong process, of course. I'm not saying that you just do it and then you're all blissful, happy for the rest of your life. You know, that's not what we're here for. We have karma to come. But, you know, when we do it, it's just like, oh, yeah, this is what it was for. This is why I went through all that. This is why I'm still willing to go through all that.
Yeah, but when you're in the thick of it, you're going, do I really want to go through this?
Hey, look, it can be hell. Life
oh,
can
yeah.
be hell. A few days ago, life was hell right here. I got into this wonderful new house in Bali and discovered that there were motorbikes going by on three directions. And I felt like I was in the middle of a NASCAR racetrack, right? And I'm like, I don't like noise. And I'm in this place that if I were deaf, it would be heaven. And this gorgeous house and the rice paddies in Bali, you know, and the noise is deafening. I can't sleep. I can't rest. I can't. You know, I'm going to go totally crazy. And to have to use all the tools that I had as a healer just to be able to be at peace here was, you know, I went through from hell to heaven. It took a few hours for me to neutralize it and tune myself so that I could be here with the way it is, because this is life and on planet Earth. You know, and you know, we go through challenge after challenge after challenge. As long as we're here, we have karma to work out.
And the beauty of you is you're willing to teach us those tools and much more, so we all can be at peace and adjust to what is the hell that is surrounding us, so we can always have heaven and peace and love within us. So again, I want to say real quick, thrivingplanets.org is your website. You are on world tour. If somebody wants to have a session with you, they can contact you through your website. There's tons of information.
Mm-hmm.
You're
yes,
just
and if
such,
anyone wants to help me put together more workshops in Asia and Australia, or you want to bring me to your hometown, I'd be delighted. Yes, I love getting letters from people. I get letters from people all over the world. You know, some of them are looking for sessions, and some just say, you know, I never told anybody this, but I have this relationship with the tree or with God or with the light,
right.
you know, and I just love getting those letters. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you.
You know, I remember before we said we're going to do something in Northern California. Now there's the fire that kind of burned most of Northern California, so maybe we need to go there to heal the situation.
Mm-hmm. Well, sometimes you have to go to places in person, which is what I'm doing now, and sometimes you can just do it in the spirit from wherever you are. I like doing both.
Yes. So,
Yes.
I want to thank you again. I know you have much to do. Plus, it is really, really early there.
It's 1:00 in the morning. Yes.
You know, I could talk to you for hours, but I won't do that.
I know.
To you.
I could talk to you for hours. I love talking to you, and you have great questions. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about all this stuff. It makes me very happy. And Bahasa Indonesia, we say terima kasih, which means thank you. But it also literally means, what did I just say? Oh, I just had it. Something about giving love. Wait, hold on. Oh, I know you have to get off. Don't you?
No. Hey, I've got 2 hours and it's my time. I'll say merci since you were just in France and I know how to say that. I'm learning my French. I plan on being over there for a while.
Oh, here it is. Terima literally means receive love. So
oh, that's beautiful.
Instead of saying thank you, they say receive love here in Bali.
Namaste. It's always a pleasure. You are always welcomed here. I wish you safe travels. I know you're doing wonderful things for the planet. I'm sending you a big hug, lots of love, and we will be in touch. You just are awesome. Again, her website is...
So are you.
Thank you.
So are you. Thanks for this opportunity, Jennifer. God bless you.
God bless you. And bless your trees, and all the people that you've touched are just blessed to know you, and I know you receive blessings from them, and it's just amazing. Amazing. So with that, this is Jennifer Hillman saying, with each breath of air, we hope you gain new insights and information. We will be right back in a few minutes.